My name is Ethan Carter. I'm 30 years old. And last winter, I stood alone in my apartment, holding my phone to my ear, replaying a voicemail from my father for the third time just to make sure I heard it right. All you do is take. You've never given this family anything worth remembering. If you had any pride, you'd stop acting like we owe you something and just leave. His voice was calm, measured, like he was discussing the weather or the score of a Sunday game. But every word sliced through me like piano wire. I didn't respond. I didn't scream. I just stood there, staring out the window at the city lights. The skyline I once found inspiring now reduced to static. That night, I packed a single duffel bag, logged into my bank's admin portal, and paused every automatic payment linked to my family. 3 homes, 4 bills, a lifetime of expectations. Then, I vanished. But I'm getting ahead of myself. If you've ever felt like your family loved your usefulness more than they loved you, leave a comment. Tell me where you're watching from. And hit that subscribe button. Because I promise, by the time I'm done telling you this story, you'll never look at the phrase family first the same way again. I wasn't supposed to be the one holding everything together. Growing up in the Carter household in suburban Dallas, I was the middle child, the forgettable one. Not in a tragic way. More like practical wallpaper. Ryan, my older brother, was the golden boy, football captain, class president, naturally charismatic. People didn't just like him, they wanted to like him. Sophie, our youngest, was the miracle baby, born 8 years after me. All curls and big eyes and ballet recitals. Mom used to call her our family's heartbeat. Me, I got B pluses and was told I was capable of more. I kept to myself. Studied. Coded late at night when everyone else was asleep. By 18, I got a partial scholarship to UT Austin. By 22, I was crashing in a roommate's garage, pitching a software idea to anyone who'd take my call. And by 27, after 3 brutal years of sleeping 4 hours a night and eating dollar ramen, my logistics startup caught its first break. Then a second. Then an acquisition offer. Suddenly, I wasn't the wallpaper anymore. I was the walls, the roof, the damn foundation. And that's when they came back. It started small. Ryan's lease had a hiccup. Something about the balloon payment on his SUV. Just need a hand for 2 months. He said, they're promoting me soon anyway. Of course. I covered it. I even threw in the insurance. Sophie's financial aid didn't cover her dream school. USC. Private. Expensive. Sun-soaked. I remembered how excited she sounded over the phone, how she cried. They said I belong there. Ethan. But Mom and Dad can't swing it. Neither of them asked me directly. They didn't have to. I offered. I told myself I was investing in legacy. That someday, they'd see what I was trying to build, not just a company, but something meaningful. Then the house repairs started. Mom needed a new roof. Then the water heater. Then the kitchen remodel she'd dreamed of since before Sophie was born. At first, I was proud. I could help. So I did. But something started to shift. They stopped thanking me. Stopped treating it like a gift. Instead, it became a silent entitlement. Like the money wasn't mine to give, but theirs. Temporarily parked in my account, I was still that invisible middle child. Only now, I was invisible with a wallet. The breaking point didn't come with a bang. It came with Thanksgiving. I'd finally bought a house big enough to host. Not to show off, honestly. I just wanted to try again. Maybe this time, they'd see me. Maybe this time, I'd belong. I hired a catering crew. Rented heaters for the backyard patio. Hired a cleaning service the night before and after. I even stocked the wine cellar with Ryan's favorites and prepped a gluten-free dessert just for Sophie's boyfriend. Nobody offered to help. Not with setup. Not with dishes. Not with a single thing. Ryan gave a toast halfway through dinner. He raised his glass and said, "We're lucky. Not everyone has family like this. Through thick and thin, we show up for each other." I waited for him to glance my way. Just once. He didn't. Sophie scrolled through Instagram. Her boyfriend took selfies in front of the fireplace. Dad drank 3 bourbons. Then started in on his usual nostalgia. Back in my day, he said, slapping Ryan's back. We didn't need help from anyone. We earned everything. I smiled. I served pie. I laughed when someone made a joke at my expense. And later, I stood in the backyard alone, watching embers rise from the fire pit I'd built by hand. My breath came out in clouds. My hand smelled like wood smoke and unspoken resentment. Somewhere inside the house, someone dropped a plate. Laughter followed. They didn't even notice I was gone. 2 months later, I got the voicemail. It wasn't long, just enough time to burn through every defense I had left. All you do is take. You've never given this family anything worth remembering. You ever feel something break inside you? Not like a snap, but like a rope. Worn thin for years. Finally giving way. You don't even hear it. But suddenly, everything's quiet. I stared at my phone. Played it again. Then I opened my banking app and navigated to the shared family accounts. Paused. Reviewed. Terminated. I still remember the exact screen. Are you sure you want to cancel all linked transactions? I clicked yes. No hesitation. Then I packed a bag. Walked past the same window where I once watched the city sparkle with promise and left. No announcement. No scene. No drama. Just silence. And that silence, it was the first thing that had ever truly been mine. But what happens when the oxygen you've always given suddenly stops? What happens when people who saw you as a utility wake up to find the power's been cut? Let's just say, they didn't react well. Let me back up. Just a bit. To understand why I walked away from everything and everyone you need to see the machine I was plugged into. Not just my family, but the roles we were assigned. Without ever being asked. Because the truth is, I didn't just leave them. I rescinded my role. And in a family like mine, that's treason. Growing up, our house looked perfect from the outside. 2 stories. Red brick. A flagpole out front. And a swing set that Dad never quite finished assembling. Mom made holiday cookies every December. We had church photos and matching Easter outfits and a minivan that smelled like soccer cleats and apple juice. But inside, there was a very clear pecking order. And I was always utility. Ryan was pride. Sophie was purity. I was pressure relief. It wasn't abuse. It was subtler than that. 1,000 tiny assumptions wrapped in smiles. Ethan can handle it. Let's not bother Ethan. He's busy. But he'll come through. Ryan's trying his best. Maybe Ethan can step in. And so I did. Quietly. Repeatedly. Even when I couldn't afford it. Even when it meant pausing my own plans. I remember the first big financial request. Or at least, the first one that stung. Sophie was about to start her sophomore year at USC, and the tuition deadline had snuck up on everyone. Mom called me at 7:45 a.m. On a Thursday, her voice tight but sugar-coated. Sweetheart, I hate to ask. Really? But the student loan office said she'll get dropped if we don't wire it by tomorrow. It's just a mix-up. I'll Venmo you back by next month. Spoiler. She never did. I didn't even blink. Wired the amount, $13,200. I remember because I had to liquidate some shares from a side project that I actually cared about. When I told my business partner, he looked at me and said, "Dude, your family doesn't ask, they invoice you." It was meant as a joke. But it echoed in my head for days. And it wasn't just money. It was availability. Emotional bandwidth. Being the fallback. The fixer. Ryan missed his daughter's birthday party. I drove 4 hours last minute to bring the cake and presents. Sophie wrecked her car during finals week. I overnighted a rental and paid the insurance deductible. Mom got scammed by a fake IRS call. I handled the report. Froze her accounts. Then spent 3 weekends rebuilding her password system. And Dad Dad never said thank you. Not once. He'd just raise an eyebrow and go, "Good. That's what real men do." That was the currency of approval in our house. Utility ill worth. Love had terms. Kindness had a scorecard. Still, I kept giving because some part of me still clung to this American ideal. If you work hard enough, give enough, be dependable enough, eventually, you earn love. Like merit-based affection. Like I was trying to earn a badge from the one place that refused to hand one out. Even after my startup took off, even after my net worth crossed 7 figures, Dad would call and ask how Ryan was doing. "You know, your brother's out there grinding every day." That's real work. Not just sitting behind a screen. This? From a man who never learned to use his own email. When Sophie posted a photo in Coachella with a caption that read, "Dreams are worth it," I saw the comments. "Mom, you deserve the world." Dad, so proud of our baby girl. Not one mention that her dream was sponsored by the same guy they rarely invited to family dinners. Here's the kicker, though. They didn't hate me. They just never saw me. They saw a role, a function. The golden goose, the ATM, the emotional plug-in when things went sideways. But me, the actual person, they didn't know what I liked to eat. Never asked how I slept. Couldn't name the last book I read or the last person I dated. And then came the night before everything cracked. 2 weeks before I left, I got a call from Ryan. He sounded stressed, which was rare. Usually, he'd just joke his way through problems. Listen, the dealership's trying to repo my car. Some paperwork issue. Any chance you can float me just until next paycheck? I swear I'll Venmo you back Friday. That word again. Float. Not help. Not support. Float. Like I was a damn lifeboat. I wired the $1 800 again. But that night, something curdled in my stomach, a nausea I couldn't shake. I walked down to the mailroom in my building 3 a.m., sweatpants, slippers, and opened box 7C. Inside was the usual bank statements, tax forms, flyers. But one envelope stood out, blue and gold. The alumni office from my old college. It was a thank you letter, a printed certificate. They'd added my name to the donor wall. I'd quietly sponsored 3 scholarships for underprivileged students, and for the first time in weeks, I smiled. Not because anyone in my family would care, but because a total stranger somewhere might now be able to do what I once couldn't. Walk into a lecture hall without fear of debt. And yet, back home, they were still calling me selfish. Then, it happened. The voicemail. The one from Dad. You already heard what he said. But what I didn't tell you was what came right after. A second message. "You think this little tantrum makes you strong? We'll be fine without you. You're not the only successful person in this family." Click. No stutter. No doubt. Just venom. And for the first time in my life, I believed him. They would be fine without me. But I wouldn't. I wouldn't survive another year of this. Not mentally. Not emotionally. Not spiritually. So I shut it all down. The accounts. The auto debits. The maintenance subscriptions. Even the family streaming services. I nuked my Apple ID from every shared login. And I booked a one-way ticket to Denver. Not because Denver meant something, but because it didn't. It was blank. A clean slate. A place where nobody knew I was someone's utility. A place where I could start answering questions that had haunted me since I was 12. What do I want? What does silence sound like? What happens when the provider stops providing? I was about to find out, but first I had to let the storm hit. And oh, when it hit, it would level everything they built on my back. Silence is louder than most people think. When I landed in Denver, the sky was overcast, the air thin, sharp. I remember dragging my suitcase through the terminal, my phone buzzing in my jacket pocket every 5 seconds. Missed calls, voicemails, notifications piling up like snowflakes. But I didn't answer, Not once. I didn't text. I didn't explain. I didn't defend myself. Because here's the thing, no one tells you. The moment you stop feeding a machine that's been running on your energy, it doesn't break down quietly. It screams. I spent the first week in a short-term rental near Capitol Hill. 1 bedroom. Small kitchenette. The kind of place that smelled faintly of bleach and microwave dinners. Each morning, I'd wake up to a dozen new messages. Ethan, the car loan didn't go through, can you check? Mom's account says declined, did you change something? Sophie's tuition is on hold. This is serious. They escalated fast. Confusion turned to irritation. Irritation twisted into accusation. And then, into blame. Ryan left me a furious voice message. You think you're better than us now? Just because you made some money? This is family. Man, you don't bail on family. I played that message exactly once, then deleted it. Because when someone only reaches for you to keep themselves afloat, they don't miss you when you're gone. They miss the lifeboat. Day 9. I got a text from Sophie. Are you seriously doing this now? Finals week. You know how hard this semester's been? No apology. No curiosity. Just the assumption that my absence was a betrayal. So I replied with one sentence. Just 7 words. Thought I never gave this family anything. I hit send, put the phone face down, and sat in the silence, finally heavy with meaning. Meanwhile, the ripple effects began to surface like cracks on a frozen lake. Ryan's SUV got repossessed. Apparently, the dealership had been giving him grace periods because I was a known co-signer. Mom's mortgage renewal hit a snag. She'd been quietly using my monthly deposits as proof of income stability to the bank. Without it, the house fell under scrutiny. Sophie, her tuition hold turned into a pending withdrawal. And because she was already on academic probation, it wasn't just a pause, it was expulsion territory. They tried every angle. Emotional, practical, legal. But they kept running into the same wall. I wasn't playing anymore. Here's the twist. Though, they didn't change, they didn't reflect, didn't apologize, didn't even ask where I was. Instead, they reframed the narrative. Suddenly, I was the villain. I'd lost myself in success. I was having some kind of breakdown. I was ungrateful after all they'd done for me. They called extended family. They spun stories about how I cut ties overnight, how I was ashamed of where I came from. My mom even told her sister I was seeing a therapist who put ideas in my head. That one actually made me laugh, as if healing was contagious. And then, out of nowhere, a name popped up on my phone that stopped me cold. Emily Carter. My cousin. Dad's brother's kid. We'd barely spoken since high school. But her message was simple. No drama. No pretense. Hey, I know it's been a while. Just wanted to say I see you, and I'm proud of you. That was it. 7 seconds of kindness. And I sat there crying on the floor of a rental apartment, surrounded by takeout containers and unopened mail, letting it all out. Because when you've been treated like a tool your whole life, being seen as a person feels like rebellion. Emily followed up the next day. They're freaking out. But you're not wrong. Ethan, you've been carrying everyone for so long. If they didn't know what that cost you, that's on them. Not you. I stared at that message for a long time because she wasn't defending me. She was affirming me, and that's different. I started walking more after that. Mornings in Cheeseman Park. Headphones in. No music, just ambient sound and birdsong. I'd sit on a bench with coffee from a place called Lula Rose and watch people walk dogs. Laugh. Live. No one knew who I was. And it felt like oxygen. One morning, I passed a man in his 50s playing catch with a kid, maybe his grandson. The older man threw too far. Slipped on the grass. Fell hard. The boy screamed. I jogged over. Helped him up. He smiled at me. Embarrassed. Brushing off dirt from his jeans. Guess I'm not 30 anymore. He chuckled. And for the first time in weeks, I laughed too. Not politely, not nervously. A real laugh. Because I realized something. I hadn't felt 30 in years. I'd spent my 20s being 45, solving problems, funding lifestyles, absorbing crises. Denver wasn't just a new zip code. It was a reset. And with every day of silence from them, the guilt faded. In its place, clarity grew. Then, on the 21st day, an email arrived. Subject: family emergency, please call. No greeting. No details. Just urgency. I didn't open it. Not out of malice. Out of muscle memory protection. Because every time I'd responded to one of those emergencies in the past, it was always the same. Fix something. Pay something. Apologize for something I didn't break. But not this time. This time, they could sit in the silence they built and let it echo. But silence doesn't mean peace. And what came next? That was the beginning of the real unraveling. I didn't respond to the family emergency, please call email. Not that day. Not the next. Not even when a second one came through with the subject line in all caps and 3 exclamation points. Because I knew the emergency wasn't about health. It wasn't about danger or hospitals or someone going missing. It was about something far more fragile. Their illusion of control. By the end of week 4 in Denver, I'd built a quiet rhythm for myself. Morning hikes. Coffee at Lula Rose. A shared workspace where no one asked what I did, only how I liked my chair. I even took a pottery class, just to touch something real with my hands. Clay doesn't lie to you. Clay pushes back. Then came a voicemail from my mother. Her voice was softer than I remembered. Not broken, measured. Ethan, I know you're upset. I know we didn't always show things the way we should have. But your father's been difficult. Sophie might not be able to return to school next semester. Could we talk? Just you and me. She left a pause at the end, like she was waiting for me to breathe through the phone. I didn't call her back, because guilt wears many disguises, and nostalgia is one of its most seductive. I didn't want another rerun of We Did Our Best. I wanted something they'd never offered. Accountability. And deep down, I think she knew it too. Around that time, I did something that surprised even me. I opened a blank notebook and titled the first page, "What would peace look like if I designed it?" Not revenge. Not triumph. Peace. And I wrote, "No unexpected phone calls. No financial emergencies that aren't mine. No performative holidays. No pretending dysfunction is just how families are. No being punished for saying no." It wasn't a plan. Not yet. But it was the beginning of clarity. Then, like clockwork, the first real threat arrived. Not emotional. Not passive-aggressive. Legal. A neatly scanned PDF landed in my inbox sent by Ryan. CCing my father. "As you are still a co-signer on Mom's line of credit and the vehicle title under Sophie's name, your sudden withdrawal of funds has caused significant disruption. If this continues, we may need to pursue legal options for breach of implied obligation." Breach of implied obligation. Let that phrase sink in. I laughed. Out loud. Alone in my kitchen. Because for the first time, they finally said it. They didn't see me as a brother. Or a son. They saw me as infrastructure. A walking, breathing financial utility. And now that I was gone, they wanted damages. That was the moment I snapped into focus. Not with rage. Not with spite. With resolve. They wanted me in court. Fine. But I'd show up with more than a suit and silence. I'd show up with a full accounting of every deposit, wire, loan, lease, and late-night bailout they never labeled but always expected. And so I built a file. 3 tabs. Direct payments. Deferred dreams. Emotional labor. That last one was mostly for me. Unbilled hours. Lost opportunities. Missed dates. Panic attacks. I sat through on the phone at 3 a.m. because Ryan forgot to pay the electric bill and didn't want his wife to find out. Pages and pages of receipts. All unpaid. all unacknowledged. Until now. Then came the twist I didn't see coming. I got a handwritten letter. No return address. No signature. Just handwriting I hadn't seen in over a decade. It was from my grandfather, my dad's dad, a man I barely knew, who lived in a nursing facility upstate. A man I always thought had disowned my father decades ago over some falling out no one ever explained. Inside the envelope was a single sentence. When I walked away, they called me selfish too. That was it. No dear Ethan. No closure. Just that one line, like a stone tossed into the still water of everything I thought I understood. And suddenly, a bigger picture came into view. What if this wasn't just my story? What if it was a cycle? Passed down, normalized, reinforced. What if my father once stood exactly where I stood now? I found myself Googling the name of the nursing home. It was still operating. I wrote down the address. I didn't know why yet. Maybe I wanted to ask him something. Maybe I wanted to say, I believe you. But more than that, I wanted to break the pattern. Because cycles don't just end when we walk away. They end when we choose to build something better in their place. And I had just the plan to do it. Not with lawyers, not with lawsuits, but with something far more dangerous to people who rely on your silence. Truth. Spoken aloud. I wasn't going to disappear quietly anymore. I was going to make sure they remembered what I gave. And more importantly, what I took with me when I left. Revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes, it looks like a spreadsheet. Sometimes, it smells like fresh toner and comes in a manila envelope. Sometimes, it sounds like truth finally echoing in a room that's tried to muffle it for decades. I didn't set out to humiliate them. That would have been easy. But I wanted something deeper. Something clean. I wanted clarity. So I gave them exactly that. It started with the package. One envelope. Thick. Certified mail. Each of them got one Ryan. Sophie. Mom. And Dad. No threats. No insults. Just a document titled, Comprehensive Contribution Record, Ethan Carter. Inside was a detailed, time-stamped breakdown of every payment. Cosign. Repair. Emergency fund. Tuition wire. Rent deposit. And late-night lifeline I'd ever provided. All cross-referenced. All sourced. All real. I even printed the original bank statements and highlighted the exact withdrawals. The total came out to $372.948. I didn't round it up. Didn't inflate it. Didn't charge interest. At the bottom, I wrote, This is what I gave. This is what I withheld nothing from. This is what you mistook for obligation. I signed it, and I ended with one sentence. I'm not angry. I'm just done. Then I dropped them off at FedEx, asked for tracking receipts, and walked out into the crisp Denver air like I'd just shrugged off a 100-pound coat. The fallout began 48 hours later. First, an email from Sophie. It was short, cold, almost robotic. You didn't have to go this far. This was cruel. I stared at it for a second. Then I replied, What's cruel is watching someone drown, then blaming them for drying off on shore. She never answered. Then Ryan called. I didn't pick up. Voicemail. So what now? You think this makes you righteous? That paper doesn't prove anything except that you kept score. I saved that voicemail. Not for spite, just as a reminder. People who benefit from your silence will always resent your memory. And then there was Dad. He didn't call. Didn't text. Didn't write. He sent a counter envelope. No note inside. Just copies of my birth certificate. School transcripts. And get this, my high school football photos. Like he was saying, we raised you. You owe us. The irony, he didn't even remember I quit the team junior year because I had to take a part-time job at a tech repair kiosk to save for a summer coding camp. A camp he refused to pay for. It was almost poetic. Proof of their sacrifice was my sacrifice. But not all responses were hostile. A week later, Emily reached out again. I read it. All of it. They're fuming. But I've never seen you clearer. You didn't burn the bridge. You just stopped building it alone. That line? Stopped building it alone. I repeated it to myself every morning for the next week like a mantra. I printed it out and taped it above my desk. Because in a world that preaches family unity at all costs, choosing peace over proximity is an act of courage. Now, let's talk about the second twist. Remember that nursing home I told you about? I visited. He was there, my grandfather. Smaller than I remembered. The kind of frail that makes you speak softer. Even if the room isn't loud. I introduced myself. He looked up. Blinked. You look like your father. But your eyes are yours. We sat. Long silence. Then, I asked the question that had haunted me for weeks. Why'd you leave? He shrugged. Like it was obvious. Because staying meant erasing myself a little more every year. Until there'd be nothing left but what they wanted me to be. He looked at me. They'll tell you it's selfish. They'll need it to be selfish so they don't have to confront who they were when they had you. My hands trembled. I didn't cry, but I felt something rearrange inside me, like a spine realigning after years of quiet misplacement. He handed me something before I left. An old pocket watch. It didn't work anymore. Rusted. Scratched. But etched on the back were 3 words. You have time. That night, I sat on my balcony and watched the sky darken. Held the watch in my palm, and realized I wasn't just closing a chapter. I was flipping the whole book. Then, the final card came into play. A group text from Mom. To all of us. Let's talk. Face to face. Family dinner. One last try. At first, I ignored it. Then Emily texted me privately. You should go. Not to fix it, but to finish it. So I said yes. Not for them. But for me, to walk into that house one last time, not as a provider, not as a problem solver, but as a whole person, fully aware of what I gave and what I deserve. The date was set. Saturday, 7 p.m. Location. The family home in Dallas. Same dining room. Same table. But this time, the dynamic would not be the same. And they had no idea what I was about to say. The house looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically. Just emotionally shrunk. The front porch sagged a little more. The paint on the window frames had begun to peel. And the wind chimes Mom loved so much no longer made a sound. It was still the same house, but I wasn't the same man walking in. I paused at the front door. Ran my fingers over the brass handle. My reflection blinked back at me through the glass, older. Leaner. But steadier. I knocked once. Then walked in. They were already at the table. Mom in her usual seat. Fingers wrapped tight around a glass of sweet tea like it might shatter. Dad at the head. Arms crossed. Jaw stiff. Ryan and Sophie sat opposite each other. Eyes darting to me. Then down to their plates. No one smiled. Thanks for coming, Mom said. Barely above a whisper. I nodded. I didn't sit. Instead, I reached into my bag and placed the pocket watch Grandpa's gently at the center of the table. The sound of it hitting the wood, soft but deliberate, cut through the tension like a scalpel. Dad squinted. What's that? Time, I said. And we're out of it. I finally sat down, took a deep breath, and let the quiet settle. It wasn't my job to fill the silence anymore, but they weren't used to that. So Ryan cracked first. Look, man, we've all been through stuff. You ghosted us. That was low. No, I said. You never noticed me until I ghosted you. His face flushed. Sophie leaned forward. We were under pressure too. Ethan, you just bailed when things got hard. I looked at her. Calm? When things got hard? Sophie, I paid for your tuition twice. Ryan, I covered your down payment. Your wedding. Your kids' preschool for 2 years. Mom, I bought groceries for this house for 7 years. And none of you asked me how I was doing. Not once. I turned to Dad. And you, every time I tried to set a boundary, you called me soft, or entitled, or accused me of forgetting my roots. He said nothing. Not denial. Not acceptance. Just stone. Then Mom spoke. We never meant to hurt you. But family, it's messy. It's about giving. Exactly. I said. Giving. Not extracting. I pulled out a second envelope and slid it across the table. Inside were copies of the same contribution records I'd mailed weeks ago. One for each of them. This is what I gave. This is what I became so you could breathe. So what? Ryan snapped. You want a refund? No, I said quietly. I want recognition. Just once. I want to be seen for what I did. For who I am. Not who you expected me to be. No one spoke. So I stood. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not giving any either. But if we ever want something real again, it has to start with truth. And the truth is, I can't carry all of you anymore. I won't. That's when Dad finally broke. Not with rage, but with something worse. Mockery. So this is your little show now. Your grandstand moment. You think you're the first person to feel used. He leaned forward, eyes sharp. We all make sacrifices. Ethan, you think I wanted to work double shifts when you were a kid? You think I wanted to eat ramen for 5 years to keep this house? I stared at him. No, Dad. I think you made those choices because you believed they meant control. That you could buy obedience with sacrifice. That's what you taught me. That love had a ledger. So I learned to keep one. Silence. You built a home where value was measured in silence. And I finally refused to be quiet. I took the pocket watch back. Slipped it into my jacket. I didn't come to fight. I came to close. Close what? Mom asked. Tears forming. The unpaid account. Then, something I didn't expect happened. Sophie, always the shielded one, reached across the table. Her voice was barely a whisper. I read the whole record. Ethan. Every page. I didn't know half of it. I never said thank you. I'm sorry. And for a split second, I saw the sister I hadn't spoken to in years. Not the user. Not the manipulator. Just a girl who was also raised to believe love comes with debt. You're welcome, I said. But I can't be your bank anymore. You've got to stand on your own now. She nodded. Quiet. Eyes red. Ryan stared ahead. Jaw clenched. Unmoved. And Dad? He stood and walked out. No word. Just the sound of the back door closing like a final breath. Mom wiped her eyes. So, what now? I stood. Now? We rebuild. Or not. But this time it has to be without lies. Without silence. I took one last look around the house. The walls. The photos. The ghosts. I'll still be in Denver. But I won't be on call. If you want to talk. Talk? But if you want the old Ethan back. I let the sentence dangle. Because they already knew the answer. I walked out. Stepped into the night air. And for the first time in decades, I didn't feel responsible for the house behind me. But just as I reached the car, my phone buzzed. One new message. From a name I hadn't seen in years. Dad. And the message. Don't go too far. We might need you. I didn't open it. But I didn't delete it either. Because some wounds don't close clean, and some legacies don't die quietly. I didn't respond to Dad's text. Not right away. I let it sit in my inbox like a match soaked in water, harmless for now. But a reminder of the fire it could reignite if I ever struck it. Don't go too far. We might need you. That sentence kept echoing in my head for days. But the truth was, I had already gone too far. Not in distance. In clarity. And I wasn't coming back. A week passed. Then 2. No calls. No angry voicemails. No dramatic emails. Just stillness. The kind that used to make me anxious. But now, it felt like a blank page. I started filling it. Pottery became more than a distraction. I signed up for a full 8-week course. My instructor, Nina, told me I had a quiet kind of precision. I smiled. Because for years, I'd been loud about everyone else's emergencies and silent about my own soul. Now I was finally crafting something with my hands. No one could take that. Then came the unexpected. Emily called. "So, I saw Sophie last night." I braced. She told me she's applying to nursing school, working part-time to pay for it. That caught me off guard. Said she's not asking your help this time. Wants to do it alone. I sat with that for a moment. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt relieved. Because this wasn't about punishment. It was about breaking a chain that had been wrapped around all of us for too long. And Sophie, she was finally untying her link. A few days later, Mom sent me a letter. Handwritten. Just like Grandpa's. It began with 4 words. "You were always right." She didn't excuse. Didn't beg. Didn't rewrite history. She told me she'd started therapy. Said she realized she'd used family as a shield against accountability. That her silence, her enabling, had caused more damage than she ever admitted. And then she wrote something that stopped my breath. "I see now that your distance wasn't abandonment. It was grief. You were mourning a family that never truly existed. And now, maybe we can build a real one." I didn't cry, but I reread that line for days. Because someone finally understood not just what I'd done, but why. And then, the final twist. Remember the pocket watch? I took it to a repair shop in downtown Denver. The guy behind the counter was in his 60s, wore thick glasses and a Cubs cap. He opened it, turned it gently in his palm. "This is old," he said. "Sentimental." I nodded. "Doesn't tick anymore." He smiled. "That's what people think. But some watches just need recalibration. The mechanism's still there. It's not broken, just off rhythm." He didn't know he was talking about more than metal. But I did. He handed me a claim slip. "Come back in 2 weeks. I'll see what I can do." 2 weeks later, I picked it up. It ticked. Faint. Hesitant. But real. I stood outside the shop, pocket watch in one hand, Denver breeze in my face, and I realized I was no longer carrying the past. I was holding it, acknowledging it, but letting it beat at my pace now. I wish I could tell you that everything was perfect after that. That Ryan apologized. That Dad showed up with flowers and regret. They didn't. Some people never make peace with your boundaries. But I didn't need them to. Because peace doesn't require permission. It just requires a choice. And I'd finally made mine. I still live in Denver. I still get the occasional text holiday, birthdays, quiet check-ins. Sometimes I respond. Sometimes I don't. But I never ignore myself to answer them anymore. Emily visits often. We hike. Laugh. Sometimes cry. Mom calls every Sunday. She never asks for anything. Just to hear my voice. And Sophie. She sent me her acceptance letter. No request for money. Just a note. I did this on my own. But I wouldn't have believed I could if you hadn't walked away first. So, if you're still watching this and wondering if walking away makes you cold, heartless, ungrateful, let me be the one to tell you. Sometimes, walking away is the most loving thing you can do for everyone. Because staying and silently breaking, that's not noble. That's slow death. And no one builds a future out of martyrdom. Only out of truth. So tell me in the comments, have you ever been the one who held everything together until you couldn't anymore? Have you ever walked away not because you didn't care, but because you finally did? Let's talk about it. And if this story meant something to you, like, subscribe. Share it with the person who needs it. Because somewhere out there, someone else is staring at a full inbox and an empty heart and wondering if it's okay to finally stop answering. Tell them. It is. Story 2. I sat there in my car, gripping the steering wheel so hard that my knuckles were turning white. The streets of downtown were silent, almost too quiet. except for the hum of my engine. It was early morning, too early, and the city hadn't woken up yet. But my mind, it had been running a marathon all night. I'm Kevin. I'm 27. And a few weeks ago, my family told me I wasn't welcome at my sister's wedding. Let me say that again. My family told me I wasn't welcome. After everything I've done for them, I wasn't planning on making a scene. Hell, I didn't even plan on showing up. But then my mom called. You see, for years, I had bent over backward, doing whatever it took to keep them happy. I was the one who cleaned up the messes. I was the one who loaned money when things got tight. Even when I had nothing to spare, I was the one who showed up. But no one ever showed up for me. And now, the one time I needed them to see me, to appreciate me, they cut me out. My mother's words still echoed in my head. Don't even think about showing up to Rachel's wedding. You'll ruin everything. Ruin everything. I couldn't breathe for a moment. It wasn't the first time I'd been treated like an afterthought. It wasn't the first time I was the family's scapegoat. But this was different. This was the last straw. For years, I'd played by their rules, kept my head down, and stayed quiet, hoping that one day they would see me as more than just the guy who handled the tough stuff. But what did I get in return? A cold dismissal from my own flesh and blood, the very people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. Instead, I got silence, judgment, rejection. But I wasn't going to take it anymore. If you've ever felt like you were the one always giving, the one always fixing, the one who never gets anything back, hit that like button, drop a comment below, and share your story. And don't forget to subscribe, because this story isn't over. Trust me, it's just beginning. Camera zooms out slightly, showing Kevin taking a deep breath before turning the key in the ignition and driving away. I grew up in a family that looked perfect from the outside. At least that's what they wanted everyone to think. From the outside, we were just another suburban family with white picket fences and Sunday BBQs. You know the type. My dad, a successful corporate attorney, always dressed to the nines in crisp suits and had that booming laugh that made everyone think he was the life of the party. And then there was my mom, always put together, always with that smile that never seemed to falter. She was the image of the perfect suburban mom. My sister, Rachel, she was the golden child. The one who never put a foot wrong. Everything she did was celebrated. Every achievement was an event. And then there was me. I was the oldest, but the last to get any real recognition. I was the one who quietly handled all the messes. When Rachel wrecked her car in college, I drained my savings to help her keep it a secret so she wouldn't lose her internship. No thank you. Just a slight nod of acknowledgement. When Mom forgot to pay the electric bill for 3 months and blamed it on Eric, our younger brother, who was too young to matter, I covered it. Again, no thank you. Just a cold, that's what family does, right? For years, I thought if I kept giving, if I kept being the good son, they'd eventually see me as more than just their backup plan. I thought one day, they'd appreciate all the sacrifices. But no. Instead, they treated me like a footnote in their perfect little family story. I was the invisible man, the one who was always there but never noticed. I've spent my whole life trying to please them, trying to fit into their mold. But what did I get in return? A whole lot of nothing. And every time I tried to speak up or ask for anything, I was met with a cold silence, a disapproving glance, or a dismissive comment. I should have known better. Right. I should have known that no matter how much I gave, they'd never give back. Not really. But I was just so desperate to be seen, to be loved, to be included in their world. The world where Rachel was the star, the world where everything I did was taken for granted. So, there I was, sitting at my desk, scrolling through my phone, just trying to get through another boring day. That's when the text came through. Rachel's wedding announcement. No surprise. Really, she'd been dating Brandon for years. They were one of those picture-perfect couples always posting happy pictures on Instagram, going on vacations, doing charity work, all that stuff. I sent her a quick text. Congratulations. I'm happy for you. You'd think that after everything I'd done for her, a simple thanks would be nice. But no. All I got was a half-hearted A couple of days later, my phone buzzed again. It was Mom. And the words that flashed across the screen took my breath away. Don't even think about showing up to Rachel's wedding. You'll ruin everything. She doesn't want you there. You're not part of the picture. I couldn't even respond. My mouth went dry. My heart dropped into my stomach. Ruin everything. I didn't even know what that meant. I wasn't planning on making a scene or giving a speech or anything like that. I was just planning to show up, clap when the right moment came, maybe hug a few people, and enjoy the day. But to them, my mere presence was a problem. I just stood there in my apartment, frozen, trying to make sense of it all. I couldn't breathe. It was like a weight had been dropped on my chest. My entire body felt numb. Tell him he can still send a gift. Though, I heard Rachel's voice in the background, dismissive, as if it was some kind of joke. He's still good for that. And that was it. That was the moment it all clicked. They didn't see me. They never had. I wasn't even a part of their family anymore. Just a dollar sign. Just someone they could rely on for money and favors. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. But I didn't. Instead, I just smiled. The kind of smile I gave my boss when he tried to pile more work onto me. The kind of smile that says, "You have no idea what's about to happen." I understand. I texted back. And with that, I ended the conversation. I didn't say another word. But as soon as I hung up, I opened my laptop. I logged into the joint account I'd set up for their honeymoon gift. The one where I'd transferred over $4,200 just a few weeks before. I reversed the transaction. Every penny. And then, just for good measure, I took a screenshot of the transfer and sent it to Mom. No words. Just the picture and a simple caption. I wouldn't want to ruin anything. I watched as the message ticked over to seen. No reply came. But I knew. I knew she saw it. And deep down, I could feel the weight of the moment settle in. But that was just the beginning. I never thought I'd be here. But then again, when it's your family people who are supposed to have your back, no matter what, it's easy to let the pain of years of mistreatment fade into the background. Until it doesn't. I've always been the one who held everything together. The glue that kept the family from falling apart. Not that anyone ever noticed. My name is Kevin. And I've been a doormat for as long as I can remember. The first time I really understood my place in the family was when I was 16. I was sitting in the living room, doing my homework. When my dad came in, he was in one of his moods. His suit jacket still on, even though he'd been home for hours. His tie was loose around his neck, but the look in his eyes was sharp disappointed. "You know, Kevin," he said, leaning against the doorframe, "if you applied yourself the way Rachel does, you might actually be something one day." Rachel. My golden child little sister. Always the perfect one. The one who got straight A's without breaking a sweat. The one who could do no wrong. While I was the oldest, I was always the one who came up short in Dad's eye. If only you could be more like Rachel. He said it so often, I stopped keeping count. That night, when he said it again, I swallowed the words I wanted to say and just nodded. Because that's what I did. I nodded. I let them use me. I let them belittle me. I kept doing things for them, fixing problems, solving crises, believing that one day, they'd realize I wasn't just the fallback. I wasn't just the spare tire they'd call in when their perfect little lives fell apart. But it never came. That realization, that moment when they'd look at me and say, "You matter too, Kevin." I kept working at it. Though, I tried so hard to be seen, to be heard. By the time I was 20, I'd already figured out my role in the family. I was the fixer. I'd learned that if I could just get through the day without causing waves, they might finally appreciate me. I thought that if I could handle the problems, take on the burdens, they would eventually notice how much I was doing for them, how much I was giving. I met Jason, my ex-husband, when I was in college. He was kind, thoughtful, and he saw me, really saw me, in a way that my family never did. We got married young, maybe too young, but at the time, I thought that with him, I could finally escape the constant weight of being invisible in my own family. We didn't have much. He worked nights at a coffee shop while I worked part-time and finished my degree. But we were happy, in a way that felt real. For a while, it felt like a life I could finally call my own, until everything fell apart. Of course, I never told my family about Jason's affair. They didn't need to know. They had enough of their own drama. Besides, I could already hear their judgment. You didn't keep your marriage together. You must have pushed him away. And that was the final straw. That was when I realized, no matter what I did, I would always be the one who was blamed, always the one who was wrong, always the one who would never be enough. So, fast forward a couple of years. I'm sitting at my desk at Madison Marketing, my new job after the divorce. It's a small office, but I like the work. It keeps me busy, keeps my mind off the empty apartment I'd been coming home to since Jason left. But that's the thing about a life like mine, it's never quiet for long. I opened my phone that day, expecting to scroll through the usual emails and notifications. But there it was. Rachel's engagement announcement. She'd just gotten engaged to Brandon, her longtime boyfriend. I wasn't surprised. I'd seen it coming for months. They made a cute couple. But even so, it stung. It always stung. I hadn't really been close to Rachel in years, but her life always seemed to get handed to her on a silver platter. No stress, no drama, just perfect. And then I saw it, the wedding details. A big, expensive venue, a huge guest list, and a request for wedding contributions. Rachel's voice echoed in my head, the way it always had. You're invited, Kevin, but just keep a low profile. Okay. Don't make things awkward. Don't do anything that would embarrass us. It wasn't even a question, just a demand. But the thing is, I was done with being the low-profile guy. Done with being the one who always had to be perfect in their eyes while they treated me like I was disposable. I texted Rachel, trying to keep it casual. Congratulations. I'm happy for you. Let me know if you need help with anything. Her response, a half-hearted thanks. But don't go overboard. Okay. Just like that, the pieces clicked into place. All these years, I had sacrificed everything for them. And they couldn't even give me the courtesy of a genuine thank you. Not even for my sister's wedding. But that's when it hit me. They weren't going to see me. They were never going to see me. I sat back in my chair, letting the anger simmer in my chest. What's the point of being there if they don't even want me around? I had been doing this all my life, trying to please them, trying to be what they wanted me to be, but no more. And that's when I saw it. The wedding venue. Lakeview Ridge. It wasn't just any place, it was one I had a hand in. You see, last year, I'd quietly invested in a small chain of event venues, one of which happened to be the exact location Rachel had bragged about on Instagram. Lakeview Ridge. The one with the big white gazebo and overpriced brunch menu. It wasn't just another wedding venue to me. I had final say on everything that went down there, including weddings. I couldn't believe it at first. Was this really happening? Could this be the one thing that might finally give me a little bit of control? Could I actually take back the power they'd stolen from me all these years? I didn't even have to lift a finger. I didn't need to crash the wedding or make a scene. All I had to do was wait. And that's when I decided I wasn't going to let them get away with this. Not without feeling the weight of their actions. I pulled up the contract for the venue. As I skimmed through it, something caught my eye, the fine print. A clause I had overlooked in my initial review. It was clear now. If the final payment wasn't received by the due date, the wedding would be forfeited. I felt the blood drain from my face. This was it. I had them. But they still didn't know who they were dealing with. I sat there, staring at the screen. The contract for Lakeview Ridge, the one Rachel and Brandon were so proud of. The one they had been boasting about for months. The one where they planned their perfect, picture-perfect wedding. And yet, it was all in my hands now. I reread the clause again. Failure to pay the final balance by the due date will result in the event being canceled with no refund. My finger hovered over the mouse, frozen for a moment. This was it. I was holding the power now. Not them. I wasn't just an outsider looking in anymore. I had something they would never expect me to have. I closed my eyes for a second, letting the weight of it sink in. My body tensed. My heart raced. The adrenaline was real. But with it, there was also a strained, exhilarating calm. I didn't have to do anything drastic. I didn't need to show up at the wedding and make a scene. I didn't need to create a drama that they could frame me for. No. I had something even more dangerous. I had the power to take it all away. Quietly, without a single word spoken. I could take their dream wedding and their dream life away with the click of a button. They didn't see me coming. They thought they had me figured out. But they were wrong. I had been playing this game for so long. I was used to being overlooked. Used to being the one who cleaned up the messes. I was the family's problem solver. The one who made everything look okay on the outside. But no more. And here I was standing at the edge of everything I'd ever dreamed of. The edge of finally having control over something that had always been their thing. Not mine. The wedding wasn't just some event to me. It was the culmination of years of being dismissed. Every time they overlooked me, every time they treated me like I was invisible, it stung. But this was going to be my revenge. The phone call I made to Amy the night before was still fresh in my mind. Amy, the one who worked at Lakeview Ridge as an event coordinator. I'd met her a few months ago when I attended a corporate event there. She had no idea who I was at the time, but she was smart. She knew what I wanted, and she knew what I could do. You know what to do, I had told her. Are you sure about this? Kevin. Her voice had cracked a little. A hint of uncertainty. I'm sure, I'd replied, my voice low and steady. I just need you to give me the details on the payments. When they're due, and when the last payment is made. That's when I'll act. Make sure you have everything in place. Amy, they won't see me coming. She didn't say anything after that. Just gave a hesitant nod. Knowing this wasn't going to be some harmless request. It was personal. I hung up the phone. My breath shallow. I was already feeling the tension in my chest. This wasn't just about money. It was about something bigger, about finally taking back what was mine. And the best part? No one, not even my family, would ever know I was behind it. The next day, I stood in front of my mirror, adjusting my tie, trying to calm my nerves. The reflection staring back at me wasn't just Kevin. It was someone else. Someone who wasn't afraid anymore. Someone who knew what it meant to take control. I had to admit, it felt good. It felt empowering. I grabbed my car keys and walked out the door. As I pulled into the parking lot of Lakeview Ridge that afternoon, the sight of the grand venue took my breath away. It was exactly as Rachel had described it, this pristine, elegant location with its sprawling gardens and shimmering lakeside view. It was their dream. A dream that was about to come crashing down. I parked my car at the edge of the lot, out of sight of the venue. I wasn't here to show myself to anyone. Not yet. I just needed to keep an eye on everything. Watch from the shadows. I wasn't here to disrupt the wedding. I wasn't even here to be noticed. I was here for something far more subtle, far more effective. I checked my phone. There was a message from Amy. Final payment is due in 48 hours. All set. I leaned back against the seat, closing my eyes. 2 days. I had 2 days to make sure that they would never forget the day they dismissed me. I wasn't going to ruin their wedding. I was going to take it from them. quietly, methodically, just like they had done to me all those years. But as I sat there, something unexpected happened. My phone buzzed again. It was from Rachel. "Hey, just wanted to remind you, don't cause any problems. You'll ruin things if you do. Just stay out of the way. It's not about you. Don't make it about you." The words stung, but I couldn't let them break me now. She still didn't get it. She still thought I was just the guy who cleaned up messes. The guy who didn't matter. I typed back, "I won't make it about me. Rachel, you've made that clear, but I can't promise it won't be unforgettable." I stared at the text for a few seconds before hitting send. I sat back in my car, letting out a long breath. My hands were shaking now. It wasn't nerves anymore, it was the anticipation. The moment was coming. The moment I had been waiting for my entire life. They had no idea what was coming for them. I checked my watch. 48 hours. 48 hours until everything changed. The clock was ticking, and I could feel the weight of it. The power I had was undeniable. The power I was about to unleash would shake their world to its core. I didn't have to show up at the wedding. I didn't need to be there. All I had to do was wait. But I wasn't sure if I could. Not anymore. I got out of my car and walked towards the venue, glancing around to make sure no one was watching. I wanted to make sure everything was still in motion. Everything had to go according to plan. But as I stepped inside, the door creaked a little too loudly. A shadow moved across the floor. I froze. It was Amy. But she wasn't alone. She was standing there, face pale, looking over her shoulder with wide eyes. Then, she glanced at me, and I saw the unmistakable fear in her eyes. "Kevin, you need to leave. Now." And that's when I realized the game I thought I was controlling was far more complicated than I ever imagined. The moment Amy's eyes locked with mine, I knew something had gone terribly wrong. Her face was pale, almost ghostly, and her lips were pressed together in a thin line. She shifted her weight from one foot to the other, her eyes darting nervously around the room. It was obvious she was panicked. I stepped forward, my heart racing as my mind ran through a dozen possibilities. Had something gone wrong with the payment? Was there a slip-up in the plan? Or was someone onto us? "What's going on, Amy?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, trying not to let the fear in my chest spill into my words. She opened her mouth but closed it again. Her eyes locked on mine, and I could see her internal struggle. "Kevin, you need to leave. Right now." I didn't move. I stood there, the words hanging between us, suspended in the thick air. My eyes narrowed as I studied her. Amy wasn't the type to get rattled. She was cool, methodical, just like me. She knew exactly what was at stake. So why was she acting like this? I didn't like the feeling of being out of control. I had spent weeks setting this up, carefully orchestrating every detail. I had the power now. I was in control. I wasn't going to let anyone or anything ruin it. "Amy, what's going on?" I repeated, more urgently this time. Stepping closer, the tension in my chest was building, and my fingers clenched at my sides. She swallowed hard, then glanced over her shoulder again. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "They know. Rachel knows. She's already figured it out." I froze. Rachel knows. How? It didn't make sense. No one was supposed to know about my involvement. Amy was the only person I had trusted to handle the behind-the-scenes details. If Rachel had figured it out, no, she couldn't have. Not yet. "How is that possible?" I whispered, my mind racing, my pulse quickened. There had to be some mistake. "Amy, you're sure?" She nodded, her expression stricken. "I don't know how, but she's got someone watching the books, and they've already flagged the transaction." I could feel the blood draining from my face. My stomach twisted. "What do you mean? You told me you handled it." She closed her eyes briefly, then opened them again, filled with the kind of fear I hadn't seen in her before. "I thought I did, but now Now they're checking everything. They're watching the accounts. Rachel's been asking questions. And now they're suspicious. Kevin, if you don't get out of here, they'll find out everything. I stood there, rooted to the spot, the weight of her words pressing down on me. A flood of panic rushed through me. But I quickly pushed it back down. I couldn't afford to let fear take over now, not when I was so close. How much time do we have? I asked, the words slipping out almost instinctively. Her voice trembled. Not much. They'll be on to us in less than a day. Maybe sooner. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I had to think. I couldn't let this unravel now. This was the final act. I wasn't going to let Rachel or anyone else destroy it. I wasn't going to lose my shot at finally getting what I deserved. I walked away from Amy, my mind spinning. I needed to make sure Rachel didn't get a chance to act on her suspicions. But I couldn't do it alone anymore. The whole plan had to shift. I needed backup. I pulled out my phone and dialed the number I hadn't called in years. My Uncle Joe. He wasn't just any uncle, he was the one who always told me to stand my ground. He was the one who taught me how to be tough. He was the one who would never back down from a fight. The phone rang a few times before he picked up. Joe, I said, my voice low, my words carefully measured. I need your help. There was a pause, then a grunt from the other end. What's going on? Kid, he asked, his voice gruff but with a hint of concern. It's Rachel. She's on to me. I need you to get the legal documents for the wedding venue. I need everything, contracts, payments, receipts. I need it all. And I need it fast. Another pause. Joe knew better than anyone that when I asked for something like that, it wasn't a casual favor. All right. I'll get you what you need. But you're gonna owe me for this one. Kid. I gripped the phone tighter, nodding to myself. I don't care what it takes. Just get it done. I sat in my car, parked a few blocks away from Lakeview Ridge, trying to process everything. My hands were shaking again. This wasn't how I'd imagined it would go. This wasn't the clean, calculated plan I had in mind. But I wasn't about to let them win. Not now. Not when I was so close to taking control. I glanced at the contract once more, my heart pounding in my chest. It was like a ticking time bomb. Every second that passed was one less I had to pull this off. I had to move fast. But the question that kept echoing in my head was this. Was I already too late? I checked my phone again. Amy had sent a message. They're getting closer. Kevin. They're asking the right questions. If we don't act soon, everything will fall apart. I took a deep breath, clenching my fists on the steering wheel. I wasn't going to let it fall apart. Not now. Not after all I'd done. The game had changed. Now I had to adapt. I had to outsmart them. Stay 2 steps ahead. But what if that wasn't enough? I leaned back in my seat, trying to calm my racing heart. I had a few hours left at most. The clock was ticking. I couldn't waste another second. As I started my car, preparing to drive back to the venue, my phone buzzed again. A text from Joe. I've got the documents. Meet me at the usual place in 30 minutes. And be careful. There's something else you need to know. What the hell did he mean? I had no time to waste. I met Joe in the alley behind the diner, a spot we'd used for years to exchange business without drawing attention. The shadows were deep, the city lights barely breaking through the fog, casting everything in a dim haze. My heart was racing, and I could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on me. This was it. The final step. Joe didn't waste time with pleasantries. He handed me the stack of papers with a sharp nod, and I grabbed them without hesitation. His eyes flicked nervously around, his usual calm replaced with a quiet urgency. You're in deep now, kid, he muttered, his gravelly voice tinged with something I couldn't quite place. This isn't a game anymore. You know that, right? I nodded, my fingers curling around the papers. The truth was, I wasn't sure what to feel anymore. Part of me was terrified. The other part, well, That part was already a few steps ahead, relishing the thought of finally flipping the script on my family. But Joe's warning lingered in the back of my mind. I wasn't used to feeling this vulnerable, and something about the way he looked at me made me wonder if I was about to make a mistake I couldn't undo. "What's the deal, Joe?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady as I flicked through the papers. Receipts, invoices, wedding contracts, everything I needed to finalize the plan. Joe shifted uneasily, his eyes darting toward the street. "It's not just Rachel. It's the whole family. Kevin, you've got more enemies in this than you think. You might want to think twice before you go through with this." I paused, the words sinking in. "What do you mean?" I asked, my stomach tightening. He gave a low sigh. "You're messing with more than just their wedding. You're messing with their reputation, their image. And you know how much they value that? You might think you're untouchable. But trust me, the whole thing's gonna blow up in your face if you don't back off now." I stared at him, my fingers still clutching the papers. "You think I haven't thought this through?" I said, more sharply than I intended. The weight of everything, the years of sacrifice, the years of being dismissed pressed in on me. I'm done being their punching bag. Joe, this is my chance to finally make them see me, to make them realize what they've done to me. He sighed again, his shoulders slumping. "Just be careful. Kid, this is bigger than you think. You're not the only one playing this game. And trust me, some people don't play by the same rules you do." His words hung in the air, but I didn't let them take root. "I'm fine," I said, almost to myself, more to convince myself than anyone else. I needed this. I needed it to work. I wasn't going to back down now. I didn't waste another minute. I drove straight to the venue, my mind racing with plans and contingencies. As I parked in the far lot, away from prying eyes, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was on the edge of something monumental. It wasn't just about Rachel anymore. It was about everything I had ever given up, everything I had ever sacrificed. I was doing this for me. I was doing this to take control of my life, once and for all. I checked my phone again. Amy had sent another message. "They're asking about the final payment." Someone's sniffing around the venue, asking about the contract. "You need to make sure the payment goes through." My fingers gripped the phone tightly. This was it, the last hurdle. If I could make this payment disappear, Rachel's perfect wedding would collapse. Everything she had worked so hard for would be gone in an instant. She would finally understand what it felt like to have everything slip through her fingers. But I wasn't just thinking about her. I was thinking about me, how they had used me all these years, taking advantage of my loyalty and my generosity. I was the one who always fixed things for them, who made everything look perfect, but no one ever noticed. No one ever cared. Until now. I stepped out of my car and walked toward the venue, trying to steady my breathing. The evening air was cool against my skin, and the crunch of gravel beneath my shoes was the only sound breaking the silence. I felt like I was moving through a dream where everything I had worked for, all the anger, all the resentment, was finally coming to fruition. As I neared the back entrance, I spotted Amy by the door, her figure silhouetted against the light spilling from the hall. She was holding something in her hand. I could tell from her stance that she was nervous, but she wasn't backing out. She couldn't. Not now. "Everything's set?" I asked, my voice low but firm. She glanced at me, her face a mask of anxiety. "It's all done. The money's been redirected, just like you asked. But Kevin, I need to tell you something." My pulse quickened. "What now?" Amy hesitated for a moment, then stepped closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "Rachel's been asking a lot of questions about the payments. She's digging deeper than before. She doesn't trust anyone right now. If she finds out..." I cut her off, my frustration bubbling to the surface. "I don't care. It's too late to back out now. You've done your part, Amy. I've done mine. Now we finish this." I could see the conflict in her eyes, But she didn't argue. She just nodded, stepping aside to let me pass. I walked into the venue. The massive ballroom sprawled out in front of me, lit with crystal chandeliers and white roses. It was as glamorous as it was empty. No turning back, I muttered under my breath, feeling the weight of my decision in my bones. I stood at the back of the room, hidden in the shadows, watching as the wedding planners fluttered around, finalizing the setup. This was it. I had made it this far, but the real work was about to begin. I checked my phone again. 1 hour. I had 1 hour left before the final payment was due to clear. The countdown was on. And then, as I was about to send the final instruction, my phone buzzed again. It was from Joe. "You're not alone in this. Someone's watching you. Be careful. Kevin." I froze. Someone was watching me. My hand shook as I stared at the message. I didn't have time to think about it. Not now. But I could feel my pulse racing as I sent the message, finalizing the payment. But the question lingered in my mind. Who else was in on this? I stood in the back of the grand ballroom, my heart pounding in my chest. Every muscle in my body wound tight as I watched the final preparations for Rachel's wedding unfold before me. Everything was perfect, too perfect. Every flower, every chair, every white satin ribbon hung just right. But under the surface, the tension was thick. Like the calm before a storm, I had just hit send on the payment transfer, sealing their fate. The final step of my plan was set in motion, and now it was a waiting game. The moment Rachel and her family came in to find that the payment had been canceled, that would be it. Her dream wedding would implode, and I would finally get the satisfaction I had been craving for years. But as I stood there, hidden in the shadows of the ballroom, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had missed something. Something big. Joe's warning echoed in my mind. Someone's watching you. A sharp sting of anxiety hit me. Was I in over my head? Was this about to spiral out of control in a way I hadn't anticipated? I reached into my pocket for my phone, fingers trembling. Another message from Joe. "It's happening. Rachel has someone in place. You need to leave now. Things are about to get ugly." I quickly scanned the message. Leave now. It was too late for that. I wasn't going to back out now. I couldn't. This had been too long in the making. They had pushed me too far. The wedding planners were busy, but I could see them darting glances in my direction, their eyes lingering on me for just a second too long. Something was off. And I knew it. Someone had to have noticed me by now. I walked further into the room, keeping my head down, trying to blend in. The last thing I needed was to draw attention to myself. But every step felt heavier, every breath harder to take. I couldn't quite put my finger on it. But I was on edge, like I was being watched, like I was being stalked by invisible eyes. "It's fine. I'm fine," I whispered to myself, trying to calm my nerves. Just focus on the endgame. Focus on the outcome. As I neared the main area, I caught sight of Rachel talking to one of the wedding planners. She was laughing. The smile plastered across her face so perfect that it almost felt wrong. She was the picture of happiness, the princess on her wedding day. But I knew deep down, I knew that all of this was built on lies. Lies about how much I had given, how much I had sacrificed for them. Rachel had no idea what was coming. I watched her from across the room, standing tall, holding her champagne flute like she was untouchable. It wasn't just about the wedding anymore. This was about everything. All the years of being second best. All the years of her being the golden child while I was treated like an afterthought. This was about showing them that I wasn't the invisible one anymore. And then, right as I was about to turn away, something caught my eye. A figure in the far corner of the room, someone who didn't belong. He wasn't wearing a tux or a wedding dress. He wasn't part of the catering staff. He was just standing there, watching. My heart skipped a beat. This wasn't just anyone. This was a man I recognized, a man who had worked at the venue when I first got involved with them. It was Tom, one of the venue's financial auditors. My stomach dropped. Tom. Why was he here? I stepped back, out of view, my mind racing. It hit me like a brick wall. Of course Tom would be here. Rachel had been suspicious for a while. Hadn't she? She had to have known something was wrong. She must have hired him to dig deeper, to find out what was happening with the wedding funds. I hadn't considered that, hadn't thought of what it would mean if someone from outside the family was snooping around. Suddenly, everything felt like it was slipping out of my control. If Tom discovered the canceled payment, everything would come crashing down, and I would have no way out. My pulse was hammering in my ears now. I had to do something. I couldn't let them ruin everything, not when I was so close. I stepped back into the shadows, my mind racing as I searched for a way to deal with this new development. I needed to get Tom out of the picture. Fast. I scanned the room, looking for a way to get to him unnoticed. He was standing near the bar now, talking to a few of the waitstaff, his back turned toward the crowd. It was now or never. I started walking toward him, my heart racing as I took each step, trying to remain calm, trying to act casual. If I panicked, they'd see it in my face. They'd see how much I was unraveling. I was within arm's reach when I stopped. Suddenly, something tugged at me, something deeper than just the plan. I stopped cold. My gut was telling me something was off. Was it too late to pull back? What if I went too far? What if I destroyed everything and everyone just to get back at them? I swallowed hard. No. I had to do this. They'd made me the villain in their story for years. Now it was my turn to write the ending. Just as I was about to approach him, a voice cut through the noise of the crowd, loud, sharp, unmistakable. Kevin. I froze. It was Rachel. She was standing there, staring directly at me. Her eyes narrowed in confusion. What are you doing here? I felt my heart stop for a second. My breath caught in my throat. The air around me seemed to freeze, and for a moment, time itself seemed to hang in the balance. What do you mean? I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Though it felt like I was speaking through a fog, her gaze never wavered. Her eyes locked on mine like she was trying to read me. I asked you not to make this about you. Kevin. What is going on? Her words were like daggers, each one piercing through the thin armor I had built over the years. It was too much. The truth hung in the air like a heavy weight, threatening to fall and crush me. Before I could respond, someone else stepped forward. Tom. He was standing right behind Rachel, his face expressionless, and his eyes locked on me with a knowing look. You've been very busy, haven't you? Kevin, he said, his voice low but unmistakably cold. Tom's words echoed in the back of my mind, the weight of them pressing down like a heavy, suffocating fog. You've been very busy, haven't you? Kevin. I could feel my heart pounding against my ribs, my body frozen in place. Rachel stood just a few feet away. Her eyes narrowed as she studied me. But all I could focus on was Tom. There was something in his eyes, something calculating, something I hadn't expected. This wasn't the moment I had envisioned. I had thought I'd be the one with the power. I thought I was the one controlling the narratives. But right now, standing there in that cold, glittering ballroom, I was the one who felt exposed. I tried to speak, but my throat was dry. The words stuck. My mind raced. But it wasn't fast enough to catch up with what was happening. What do you mean? I finally croaked, trying to keep my voice steady. Even though I was anything but steady. Rachel crossed her arms, looking at me with a mix of confusion and something else, something I couldn't quite place. You've been behind all of this, haven't you? I didn't respond immediately. The truth was, I wasn't sure how to respond. I had been the one pulling the strings behind the scenes. But I hadn't planned for this. I hadn't planned on being caught like this, with everything unraveling before I had the chance to finish what I'd started. Tom stepped forward, his face hardening into a mask of indifference. You think I didn't know? You think I didn't see the red flags when you started redirecting payments? He laughed dryly, shaking his head. You really thought this was your moment? Didn't you? Kevin. That you could just take control and watch the whole thing crumble. But you weren't counting on me. My stomach twisted. The realization sinking in like a stone. I had been so focused on making them pay that I hadn't thought about the bigger picture. I hadn't considered that someone else, someone outside the family, might have their own agenda. I glanced around. The sudden sense of isolation hitting me hard. The ballroom, with its pristine white walls and crystal chandeliers, felt more like a cage than a celebration. There was no escape. No clean break. This was it. The moment of truth. Rachel stepped closer. Her gaze piercing. "Did you think I wouldn't find out?" she asked. Her voice quiet but filled with something I couldn't quite read. Was it anger? Hurt? A mixture of both. She looked at me as though I were a stranger. "You ruined everything. Kevin, you ruined this for me. For us." "I didn't ruin anything," I said, my voice gaining strength as I spoke. "You never saw me." "Not really. You used me." "Rachel. Used me until I was no longer useful. I just wanted to matter." Her eyes flickered with something I couldn't place. And for a brief moment, I thought she might say something, anything that would make it all feel right. That would make it worth it. But all she said was, "You should have let it go. Kevin. You should have stayed out of it." The words stung, sharper than anything I had expected. She wasn't crying. She wasn't pleading. She was just disappointed. And that hit me harder than any insult or betrayal ever could. I turned away, my mind a whirlwind of thoughts. But then, I felt a hand on my shoulder. It was Tom. His touch firm, almost controlling. "You've done enough damage, Kevin," he said, his voice low and calm, but there was an edge to it. "It's time to finish this." I looked at him, confused, but there was no time to ask. Before I could react, Tom was already walking toward the back of the ballroom, beckoning me to follow. I hesitated, then moved with him, my legs heavy as if they were dragging me into the very fire I had started. As we reached the side hallway, Tom stopped, his back to me. I could feel the tension in the air, thick and suffocating. "This is where it ends, Kevin," he said, turning slowly, his face now hard with determination. "You thought you could control the story, but you're not the only one with a hand in this." I felt my blood run cold. "What are you talking about?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Tom smirked, leaning in closer, his eyes glinting with something I couldn't decipher. "You've made your move. But now, it's my turn." "Your turn." My pulse quickened. What did that mean? Was he involved in this in some way I hadn't anticipated? Was Tom working against me this whole time? He stepped back, a small, satisfied smile playing on his lips. "The truth is, Kevin, you're not the only one who's been holding the cards. I've been watching. And when Rachel realized you were pulling the strings, I decided it was time to step in." I couldn't breathe. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Tom had always been a loose end, someone I thought was just a small part of the picture. But now, it was clear that he was a bigger player than I had realized. The game I thought I had controlled, it was slipping away from me. I wanted to yell at him, to demand answers, to force him to tell me what he was going to do, but something told me that pushing too hard would only make it worse. Tom's phone buzzed in his pocket, then back at me, his face darkening. "It's done," he said. "Rachel will never trust you again. You've burned that bridge. Now, it's time to burn the rest of them." And with that, he turned and walked away, leaving me standing there, alone in the shadows of the ballroom. My mind raced as I tried to make sense of everything that had just happened. I could feel the walls closing in around me. This was my last chance to get out, to make the right choice. But with Tom playing his hand and Rachel turning against me, I was starting to wonder if I'd already lost. I turned back to face the ballroom, my body tense and on edge. But before I could make a decision, My phone buzzed. A new message from Joe. Don't trust Tom. He's playing his own game. You've been set up. Get out now. I looked at the message, my hands shaking as I realized what it meant. It was all falling apart. Tom's warning echoed in my mind like a drumbeat, loud and incessant. Don't trust Tom. He's playing his own game. You've been set up. Get out now. I stared at the message, my hands shaking as I felt the world beneath me begin to crack. This was it, wasn't it? The moment everything I'd worked for, everything I'd sacrificed was unraveling before my eyes. And Tom, the man I had trusted, the man who'd been the one person I thought I could count on, was now the architect of my downfall. I looked back toward the ballroom, where the laughter and clinking glasses echoed through the walls. They had no idea what was coming. They were still wrapped up in their perfect little world, and I was the one who had let myself believe I could take it down with a few strategic moves. But now, it felt like I was being swallowed whole by everything I thought I controlled. I took a deep breath and shoved the phone back into my pocket. There was no time to think about what might happen. I had to act now before I lost my chance. I pushed through the hallway, past the kitchen and staff who looked at me with fleeting glances, probably wondering why a guest would be acting so off. I didn't care. My focus was sharp, my mind made up. I had a decision to make. The back door loomed in front of me. It was quiet, dim, a stark contrast to the chaos and grandeur inside. I needed to leave. I should leave. But as I reached for the handle, I heard footsteps behind me. Fast, urgent. I spun around just in time to see Amy rushing toward me. Her face pale, eyes wide with panic. She was breathing heavily, her hands trembling. Kevin, wait, she called, voice almost breaking. I froze, my stomach twisting into knots. Amy, I don't have time for this. It's over. It's all falling apart. She shook her head quickly, glancing around as if she was being hunted. No, you don't understand. You've been set up. All of this, it wasn't just Tom. It wasn't just Rachel. They've been playing both of us from the start. My breath caught. What do you mean? She stepped closer, voice low, frantic. You think Rachel's the one in control? But she's not. It was never about her. It's about the money. The control. It's always been about control. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. All this time, I had thought Rachel was the one calling the shots, that she was the golden child, the one with everything handed to her. But if Amy was right, if this was part of something bigger, I don't understand, I whispered, the realization slowly sinking in. Who else is involved? Amy's eyes darted around nervously before she leaned in even closer, whispering, Your mom? She's behind it all. She's been pulling the strings from the start. You were never meant to get what you deserved. Not until she got what she wanted first. My blood ran cold. All this time, my mother had been the one pulling the strings, manipulating everything, playing everyone like chess pieces. She had let Rachel think she was the one in control, made me feel like I was the one who was invisible. But in reality, she had been orchestrating everything from the shadows. No, I said, shaking my head in disbelief. I don't believe it. She wouldn't do that. Amy grabbed my arm, her grip tight and desperate. She's been doing it for years, Kevin. And now, she's about to use you as her final pawn. You have to get out of here. You can't trust anyone in that room. The weight of Amy's words settled like a stone in my stomach. For the first time, the power I thought I had started to slip away. The control I had so carefully crafted, it was nothing but a shadow. A flicker of a dream that was about to burn out. I had been so focused on Rachel, so obsessed with my need for her recognition, that I missed the bigger game. I pulled my arm from her grasp, pacing in tight circles. I had come too far to just walk away. I'm not backing down, I said, my voice shaking, but filled with a new determination. I've already made my move, and I'm not leaving until I've seen this through. Amy's face softened, the concern still present. But there was nothing more she could do. Then you have to be careful. Kevin, you have no idea how deep this goes. But before I could respond, I heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps approaching. My heart skipped. I knew who it was before I turned around. Rachel. She stood there in the doorway, her eyes locked on me with that same sharp, calculating gaze. But this time, there was something different, something darker. She knew. She knew what I had done. You've been busy, haven't you? She said, her voice cold, devoid of the warmth it once carried. You think you can just come in here, destroy everything, and walk away? It doesn't work like that. Kevin. I stood my ground, meeting her eyes with the same intensity. I'm done playing by your rules. Rachel. Her lips curled into a smile. But it wasn't a smile of triumph. It was a smile of someone who had already won. You never stood a chance, she said softly, almost pitying me. I'm not the one who's going to lose everything. You are. Before I could respond, Rachel stepped aside. And there he was, Tom. And behind him, my mother. I stood frozen. It wasn't just Rachel. It wasn't just Tom. It was all of them. And in that moment, I realized the truth. I hadn't been playing the game. I'd been played.